Good evening tonight, folks. I made the mistake again of face is looking a little shiny there. Of going to my water droplet scene. I still love that. Look at this. I just can't figure out how to effectively work it into the show. It's a beautiful image, though. Shout out to whoever created this image, man. Y'all did the damn thing. But anywho. Yeah, man. Good evening to you all fine folks this evening. That's redundant. I said evening twice. How are y'all doing? I figure tonight's podcast, or at least the subject, is going to get a couple of people's attention. Ironically, asking the question, am I just a narcissist? It's probably going to compel a couple of narcissistic assholes to chime in. Yes, you're a narcissist. About time you admit it. Hey. That's the way it usually goes. Narcissists are generally the first to call other people narcissistic. They're the first to agree that others are full of themselves. Overinflated senses of self-worth and self-value and whatnot. You know? I say a lot of bold things. Man. You know, something I don't think most people realize is, even though I am this thing I purport to be, this avatar figure, whatever, the human side of Donald King, that is what existed prior to me becoming this thing, it's still along for the ride. So all of your skepticism and all of your doubt and even your fears, your feelings of insecurity and uncertainty, I still experience these things. I'm going through the process right along with you. I don't know what this shit is supposed to be. I spent a decade of my life clowning people for believing in, well, I guess for lack of a better expression, my predecessors. At least the ones that couldn't be verified through video footage and evidence and things of that nature. I'm in this with you. I'm just as blindsided by all of this stuff as you are. I didn't plan on this being my life. I did not plan on this being my life. But back to the point, I say a lot of really bold things. Being what I am, I'm necessarily required to say things that a lot of times I even have issue or take issue with, and or have like some sort of hang up about. You understand what I'm saying? Like, none of this is fun. This isn't me trying to go for a Hail Mary big shit or whatever. I don't know the terminology to use in this situation, but I say a lot of really bold things. And I'm decidedly confident in the things that I say too. There's no wishy-washiness. Very confident. A lot of people, they take issue with the fact that I don't doubt myself in the same way that they doubt themselves, and it could lead a lot of people to believe that I'm narcissistic, right? And it raises a really interesting question. How can I know that I'm not narcissistic? How can I know that this isn't all some grand illusion, some fantasy I've spun in my head, that I've used whatever talents were imbued to me to sort of enhance and, I don't know, play out on the stage of the world? How do I know I'm not just full of myself? It is a valid fucking question. Right? You see, I've done several essays on the subject of narcissism. I've written several posts on it. I've shot several videos on it. And I like to describe the phenomenon according to how I see it through this perspective that's been afforded to me. But therein lies the rub. Can a narcissist ever recognize themselves as being narcissistic? Isn't the number one rule of being narcissistic Protect the identity at all costs. Aren't you supposed to deflect away from anything that could devalue you or lessen your perception of self-worth and deserving towards, entitling you to consume from the social trough and or be rewarded and recognized ahead of others? Isn't a narcissist a person who self-idealizes and who blocks out information and reality towards protecting their identity? How can I know that I'm not a narcissist? How? Does any narcissist ever know that they're a narcissist? It's a great question. It is an excellent question. Somebody came to me the other day and I was talking on the subject of self-idealizing, and they left at the opportunity to be like, don't you self-idealize in calling yourself an avatar? Typical narcissistic behavior. Try to make others small so as to protect your own identity and your own sense of self-value and worth. And as I explained to the gentleman, not necessarily because, I'm not the one who decided on the term. I'm hosting an entity that ultimately decided that's the term I'm going with. I objected. It said, who the fuck are you to tell me what this is going to be? I conceded. Ergo, I'm an avatar. That's what it decided on. Not me. But lo and behold, that still could be, the avatar perspective still could be a fiction of my imagination, right? It could be an idealized self that I don't know, sort of created a persona for and hide behind towards amplifying, enhancing my own identity. It could make me more interesting. It could make me more dynamic and exciting, right? As an individual, if I believed such things. It gets to the question, so with all of these things taken into consideration, Donald King, how can you be sure that you're not a narcissist? How do you know you are not just high on the idea of you and trying to sell everybody a hit of the experience? That's a great question. How? Well, I can get into answering that question. And I'm going to try and do this as mechanically and concisely as I possibly can. You see, what makes a narcissist narcissistic is, well, trauma. Trauma is, pardon me, trauma is a phobia of disempowerment. It is a crippling fear of disempowerment. What you have to understand about the socialization process is that through the socialization process, you are imbued with what we refer to as an identity. The identity is basically your social credentials. It is not just the story you tell yourself about the world around you and your place and value within it, which is comprised of symbols, meanings, beliefs, habits, practices, social effects and treatments, and pageantry and acting and behavioral and attitudinal trends that you've assimilated and seek to self-actualize through. It is also it's your credit card for society. It's your credit rating for society. Who are you determines where you're able to go and what you're able to do, the things you're granted access to, etc., 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 etc. Add in an extra "d" in there. So, when you're a narcissist, you're basically addicted to your identity. You're addicted to self-idealizing and sort of reflecting on and seeking to enhance your identity, seeking to add to the value and potency of your identity, right? And as such, if you're getting high off the idea of you, then you experience immediate and violent withdrawal when you are confronted with things that sort of chip away at the value and worth of your identity. So you're deathly afraid of like embarrassment, or you're deathly afraid of like exclusion, or you're deathly afraid of like, you know, any hits to the identity, taking any sort of culpability or anything that could serve to devalue you and steal value and potency from your identity. When you're a narcissist, you're addicted to the idea of you. Plain and simple. And you think and behave just like an addict. Which goes to the point, or better yet, which goes to point number one, the reason why I can't be a narcissist. I throw myself under the bus all the time. Even at the beginning of this video, the things that I say, they're self-deprecating. I qualify my speech so as not to speak authoritatively and elevate my personal experience, feelings, and beliefs to the level of truth and reality for all things. I openly admit to when I make errors and oversights, and more importantly, I direct people to periods of my life when I made the most errors and oversights. Narcissists can't apologize because they're afraid of losing value. They're afraid, their trauma, their phobia of disempowerment won't allow them to relinquish any semblance of power whatsoever, so they can't apologize. They can't admit when they're wrong. They can't recognize themselves in relation to the world around them and adjust and adapt accordingly. Everything is about drive, drive, drive. Force others to conform to my inner story. My identity is the world. I have to make everything a reflection of me so as to keep myself safe. Very much like the Smith character in the second and third installments of the Matrix series. He went around driving his hands into people's chests and turning them into him. And what did he do? He saw Neo. He saw Neo, this one character, the one. He knew what it was, but he wouldn't stop at anything to try. He wouldn't stop at anything trying to force Neo, something that he knew was an anomaly, something that broke him before, from becoming a reflection of himself. That's what narcissism is. Narcissism is, I have to subdue you to my identity because anything that is not me is a threat to me. Anything that is more potent than me that I can't see myself in or see my reflection in, it's necessarily a threat. Ergo, it is mechanically impossible for me to be narcissistic at this stage of my life because I do nothing but work in service to others. I do nothing but abdicate power and try to empower others. I don't fight tooth and nail for attention. I try to steer attention to others, empower and uplift. It is mechanically impossible for me to be narcissistic in that way. Point two, why I cannot be narcissistic is because I'm not the star. I'm not the star. When I became this avatar thing, right, I was narcissistic. I was highly narcissistic. Oh my God. You know, I came up in a really traumatic circumstance, you know. My biological mother, she had mental health issues, and as such, she was very, well, she tortured my brother and I. And some pretty remarkable ways. Psychologically, physically. Went to the foster care system and didn't get much better treatment in many of the places I landed. I was always called ugly. I was always called stupid. So when I finally got an identity that gave me some measure of power, when people were like, Donald King, we think that you're... When ladies were like, Donald King, well, I guess some dudes, for some reason, they're like, yo, you're hot, you're attractive. And I'm like, word? And I became pretty done. Became this identity. And then also, that's when I started to learn about my gifts too. You know, being on the autism spectrum when you're young, you can't really use the heavy artillery that is your mental capacity, your processor. You can't use it. It's too cumbersome. But when you get a little bit of strength behind you, and you get a little bit of age and distance and perspective, you can do some pretty amazing things. So not only was I, by some people's standards, attractive, but it's like, you know, I was muscular, and on top of being muscular, I have an intelligence level that puts me into a category of outliers, let's say, which allowed me to do some pretty amazing things in my life. But when I was a narcissist, man, I would see a little kid who came up in a social circumstance that allowed them to really explore their gifts and have people encourage them, not tell them that they were ugly and stupid all the time. And I always felt jealous and envious. And I was always like, if I just had someone to give it to me, if I just had some special parents, yeah, man. When I was narcissistic, I was afraid of losing power. And more importantly, I was afraid of everyone and everything that reflected my limitations back to me with laser precision and accuracy. I was always, I had these, I don't want to call them mood swings, but I would say self-perception swings, where in 1 second I was like a god-level genius. Like if I spent like 3 days in my music studio just putting together like a record that I thought really pushed my ability to the limits, it's like, you know, I was like, oh yes, I'm Stevie Wonder-esque. Oh, I can do this all day. And then the next, I would be listening to it back and I would show it to somebody and someone would be like, oh man, it's cool, it's all right. And I heard it's cool, all right, and to me it sounded like the worst fucking thing in the world. And it's like I would go through these deep depression phases where I'm like, oh my god, I'm so stupid. Whatever made me think that I could write music? Whatever made me think that I flew too high? Icarus, my wings have melted in the sun. Yeah, I was really narcissistic. And as I had mentioned before, prior to becoming this thing, I spent a lot of time self-idealizing and being traumatized by the notion of being disempowered by something that either A, reflected my mediocrity back to me, or B, by things that stole shine away from me, stole the spotlight, stole attention from me. So it's in this constant state of defensiveness. I was constantly aggressive. I was always mad and looking to devalue things and transfer my anger and frustration into people and things. A lot of times covertly, because again, when you're a coward, when you're a narcissist, you're a coward. And I wasn't openly aggressive. I was more of the passive aggressive vein. So yeah, man. But in order for me to become this thing, God, reality, or whatever you want to call it, it was like, okay, we're going to have to kill everything that makes you think you are the person you think you are. I had to become a blank slate. I had to become a blank slate. And in becoming a blank slate, I had to lose my material possessions. I had to lose my idea of self. I had to lose my career fields. I had to lose my studio. Oh my God, my most prized possession. My library of songs. They're out there somewhere. Well, a lot of them are, most of them are at the Library of Congress. At least in my file, my copyright file. But in order for me to become what I am now, the story of Donald King had to be destroyed by God itself. Everything that I thought made me who I was had to be broken so that what is now could come in and replace it. So even when I thought I was great, I was nothing compared to what I'm able to do now. And I can't take personal credit for it because, again, I'm hosting a thing that allows me to see reality in nearly absolute pitch. Synesthesia. See, hear, same thing. But, yeah, man. I'm not allowed to self-idealize because before I could become an avatar, God itself showed me I wasn't shit. Think of it like this, and this is what I was describing to my brother Rube last night, right? We were talking again. Love that guy. Brilliant, brilliant man. Over in Norway. Just one of the most intelligent people I've interacted with. Fortunate to have met him through Facebook. Thanks, Facebook. But think about it like this. The avatar perspective, it's like a Lamborghini, right? But it's God's Lamborghini. Now, before you can get access to this car, before you can get access to this Lamborghini that belongs to God, right? God is like, yo, this isn't for stunting. I don't want you rolling past the club trying to pick up women. I don't want you, trying to pull up the stoplights and race people. You know what I'm saying? This is not your car. You're using it to run errands for me. The avatar perspective does not belong to you, Donald King. You're using it to run errands for me. And just so you know that this isn't yours, and just so you don't mess around and damage my car or use it for things it's not meant to be used for, I'm going to put you through my version of driver's ed. So God was like, very, very methodically, stripped away everything that I thought made me who I was and broke me down to the core of what I was, so that when I burned in the flame of truth, the phoenix that lay before you now could emerge. That is to say, I'm never allowed to self-idealize, because before I could become this thing, anything that I could idealize about myself got burned away. It got burned away. A lot of people don't realize what comes along with this path. It's brutal, man. This has been a brutal journey, man. Brutal. And I mean, I can't even complain because, I mean, as rough as it feels, especially from the emotional end, and all the betrayal and heartache and hardship and stuff like that you have to go through. There are a million people who go through worse, far worse circumstances just trying to survive day to day, and would probably trade anything to be in the position I'm in right now. I mean, hell, the parasitic twin itself, what you all refer to as devil, it would do anything to be in this position. So, ironically, I'm trying to help it get to a state and condition where it's like this. So, but yeah, Donald King, no, fall in love with the idea of him. Because I'm not in love with the idea of me, and because I'm not lost in self-worship, which again is what narcissism is, self-worship, self-idealizing, addiction to the identity. I don't go around plastering pictures of myself everywhere. I just changed my profile picture after, I think it was almost 6 years. About a month ago. 6 years with the same profile picture, because regardless of how many compliments come to me, I'm not so sold on the idea of me that I need everybody to see how pretty other people think I am. Fuck that. I'm not trying to sell anybody an image. I don't need that type of attention. Yeah, do I speak candidly about the fact that I'm the successor of the namesake of a couple of different religions, including the most popular religion in the world? Do I pull punches about that? Absolutely not, because I'm not the one who determined it. The entity I'm hosting and what imbued it to me was like, hey, this is what you are. Which is why I had to go through the whole de-narcissizing phase. Is that a word? De-narcissizing? It should be. By the rules of the language, it should be. De-narcissizing? Yeah. Huh. But anywho, yeah. I didn't make it up. But if you're a narcissist and you've made agreements with yourself that your belief system is correct, well, you're going to be all sorts of mad at me for telling the truth of not just my life experience, but how and why I'm able to have done everything you've witnessed me do to date. You've watched me do it. You've watched me do it in real time. I said I was a I said I was an avatar. I said I was an avatar about 10 years. I started going by avatar. That's when I'll say somewhere in the area of like 10 or 11 years ago. Through that entire time, you've only seen me get better. When someone makes a claim like that, normally they start going off the deep end and they start saying all sorts of conspiracy theory shit and, you know, talking about tinfoil hats and start giving people like weird ass like directions and trying to build cults and, hey, follow me, drink this Kool-Aid, wear a white robe, die for me. But what have I done? I've gotten better at telling you how to be honest. I've helped you learn how to reason better than you ever have before. I've produced frames that even science now, the scientific community, they're borrowing from and trying to sort of integrate into what they're already doing. Come on. I've gotten better. I've destroyed the wisdom of the wise more times than I can count. And I haven't even gotten warmed up in that way yet. Is it narcissistic to draw people's attention to things that can be measured in reality? They can be measured and verified in reality. Is that narcissistic? Which actually gets to the better point. Every single thing that I say can be verified and measured independent of what I'm saying. You don't know where to look, I'll point you to it. If you don't know where to look for verification and validation on the things that I'm saying, I'm happy to point you to where you need to look. I have nothing to hide. I don't want you to believe me because I know that if you explore reality enough and you search for truth enough, you're going to arrive exactly at what I'm saying. I know. You know why I know? Because when I was a narcissist, again, when I first started doing this thing, I did everything in my power to invalidate it. And then what I need you to understand is, even if I weren't an avatar, my mental bandwidth, my processing power is exceptionally high already. It's super enhanced because I'm hosting this entity. However, even without the entity, I'm a beast. And as a beast, trying to falsify myself so that I could get away from this and prove to myself once and for all that I was delusional, as a mental beast already, I couldn't poke holes in it. So I started searching for people who were stronger of mind than me to poke holes in everything that I was saying. You know what I came up with? Zilch. I'm still looking for somebody to come along and prove that I'm full of shit. And if they do, I'm not going to sit here and stew in my juices. I'm not going to be mad and have an attitude. I'm like, thank you for showing me where I was off. My bad. And I'll adjust course. Narcissists can't do that. Narcissists can't admit when they're wrong. Now, a lot of you want me to be, a lot of you are very narcissistic. The socialization process trained you to be, so I don't necessarily blame you, but a lot of you are highly narcissistic. You come from, like, competitive cultures. You were athletes in school. Some of you were military and police, and you were ingrained in these cultures that indoctrinated you with this win at all costs mentality, and the only thing that you want to do is see me defeated, because that is how you protect your own sense of value and worth. That's how you protect your identity. So you paint me in these colors that make me evil and wrong and delusional and crazy, even though there's nothing to substantiate your hopes and wishes in that way in reality. There's no truth to your claim, yet you do everything in your power. You want to see me brought down a peg. You want to see me humbled. You want to see me humiliated. You want to see me invalidated for your own sense of satisfaction and your amusement. So a lot of times when cowardly ideologues who step up trying to challenge me are trying to put me in my place, you see me swat them down and steal what little power they think they had from them. You may be of the impression, hey, God damn it, this guy thinks he's so great. He thinks he's... That's the narcissist in you. That's the parasite in you. Wanting to see someone defeat me, however, and you say, oh, he never admits he's wrong. No, I admit when I'm wrong easily. Y'all haven't been able to make a case for it. You can read through anything. You haven't been able to make a case for it. You haven't. If you can, guess who's going to be the first to acknowledge it? This boy right there, right? Nah, you know what I'm talking about. I am what I am. I do what I do. I say what I'm going to say, irrespective of whether or not you like it. Your approval, your acceptance, your consent, your input is not required. By reality, it is not required for things to be true. You are not a master of God. You are not a master of reality. You are not a master of me. One of the worst things that narcissists do is they get it in their mind that the only way people can be safe for them, the only way people can be safe to them, is if they can convince themselves that they control people. The only way people can be safe to them is if they control people. Wow. I guess I'm having a few fragmenting issues on my podcast tonight. Okay. Yeah, it's wild. I've been getting some spotty internet for the last day or two. But yeah, and there we have it. Therein lies the rub. So yeah, I'm wondering why the bit rates are so slow here, but I guess if this is what it's going to be, I can go ahead and wrap it up here soon. Look here. People rejecting your attempts to dominate them and or assert authority over them does not by default make them narcissistic. If you feel that you should be able to dominate people, force your will on them towards preserving your own sense of value, righteousness, and self-worth, then you are a narcissist. Plain and simple. If you're a narcissist, you don't like me very much. If you're a narcissist, you think I'm narcissistic for not conforming to, validating, or edifying your inner story. If you're a narcissist, you want me to be humble for you. You want me to tell you that your feelings and beliefs are right, and that you deserve to be rewarded, and that you deserve to be acknowledged and praised for your feelings and beliefs. If you're a narcissist, you think everyone who's not reflecting you back to you is narcissistic. But narcissism isn't a subjective thing. It is marked by behaviors, it's marked by patterns in behavior, and patterns in outlooks and attitudes, and salient trends that can be measured, verified, and analyzed independent of what is felt or believed. Now, the funny thing about me writing so much on the subject of narcissism is that if you study the essays that I've written on the subject of narcissism, and the only reason why I have to call them essays and not scholarly articles is because I didn't have to reference anybody else's work so as to substantiate my own. I actually describe what I'm able to see through the avatar perspective in real time. So that's the only reason why I refer to them as essays. But when you look at what I'm saying, you can compare it to everything that is captured in the most up-to-date literature, and you'll find that the frames that I've presented actually outperform where convention has gone with it. Everything that I say outperforms convention. And I'm not saying that from a state of self-idealizing. I compare it to convention. And I look at the axioms and frames, and I could check the trajectory of reasoning that contemporary trends in thinking. I can project where the trajectory is going, and I still see I'm light years ahead. Again, not because I can take personal credit for it. I'm hosting a thing that lets me see the shit without having to build ideas or work through systems of ideas that humans came up with. Yeah. Love it, hate it, it is what it is. I don't know if anybody's out there tonight. I don't know if anybody has commented or can comment on the video, because again, a lot of times Facebook, they be playing, and then oftentimes because I say such unconventional things and such, I guess by some people's standards, inflammatory things. I don't know how many people are going to tune in on days that I do this, but I'm still going to put it out. Which is another reason why I can make a case for not being narcissistic. With the little bit of attention I get doing this work, if I was only in it for attention, I would have gave up a long time ago. There's almost zero validation. People are scared of me, and the only thing they know how to do is hide in echo chambers and rumor mills and behind bravado, because they're too scared to fucking face me head on. Because this does not pay the reward of attention, if I was a narcissist, I would have gave up a long time ago. And don't believe me, compare it to your literature. Compare it to the literature. Y'all have measured enough stuff. I guess that's the reason why reality would have to wait till now in order to reactivate this entity that takes up residence in humans every few generations or so. Y'all didn't have the tools back in Jesus' day to verify the things he was saying, or to verify the things that he saw. Yeah, he said some things that were light years ahead of your reasoning systems, ahead of idealism, especially at that infinitesimal state. But when you start getting into universal math and shit like that, when you start getting into universal math, hey brother Bishop, how you doing? When you start getting into universal math and things of that nature, what could Jesus have shown humans in the way of how prime numbers translate into structure, the frame from whence structural building blocks emerge, if they didn't even know what RNA and DNA was back then? Like, your languages are finally advanced enough to understand these concepts. Your languages are finally advanced enough to understand concepts, at least be within grasp of principles of reality. So yeah, it makes sense that an avatar would show up now. And I know it throws a monkey wrench in a lot of you guys' plans. You have big plans. You inherited all of these great big plans from your predecessors, and while they had success working this game, and you are like, oh shit, we're gonna work this game and we're gonna get the big payoff. Lo and behold, here comes this entity, and it's like, oh yeah, by the way, y'all have been the bad people the entire time. Everything that you think you know is way off base. Here's reality as it actually is. And it's like, imagine running for 999 miles, right? And you've been running for 999 miles, and just when you're about to get to the finish line, and you're like, oh man, this is going to be the end of the planet right up here. Not only do you realize that it's not the end of the planet, you realize that you're an ant, and that you didn't even make it to the end of you didn't even make it into the end of a leaf. You thought the leaf was the end of the world. And all of a sudden something comes along and shows you everything you've been working towards is a fraction of a much bigger picture in which you're useless, you're powerless. And ironically, all this stupid fighting and suppressing and trying to delay me that you're doing, only thing you're doing is blocking your blessing, because I'm actually here to help you. It's not your fault that you were given misinformation. We all were. It's not your fault that you were given instructions to work a plan that will put you out of sync with reality and get you in all sorts of trouble. You inherited that shit. You were born into a circumstance you did not choose. That's not your fucking fault. How you choose to proceed forward, though, that is your fault. Everything that you do from the time I revealed myself to you and what I am, that is your fault. And you are racking up all sorts of problems, all sorts of issues and debts to the system. Reality, it does not like you. It does not like you. Anywho, I digress. Study what narcissism is, not even from what I say. Study it on your end. Use your instruments and all little systems and terminologies you come up with to describe how it functions and performs as a phenomenon, and see if it applies to me. I'm absolutely certain it doesn't. But I'm not one to try and make you believe anything that I say. People who are lying, they need to be believed. People who are telling the truth, they want to be investigated. They want to be scrutinized. They want people to see them and understand them thoroughly. Nothing hidden under any rocks. No lies. No lies. Anywho, guys, y'all know what it is. It's your man, Donald King. I've been talking, man. Yo. We got, all right. So y'all already know what it is. I shoot these podcasts on Mondays and Wednesdays. Sorting and Sorting Principles with Donald King. In case you don't understand what sorting and sorting principles are, I'm something called an avatar. I'm two beings sort of melded into one. I host an entity. The very entity that the Christian faith system refers to as Holy Ghost or Holy Spirit. I am the new host for this thing. I didn't decide on it. I don't know how it happened. It just, apparently it was going to be this way. Who knew? Not me. I really thought this was all fairy tales. Anywho, Sorting and Sorting Principles is about showing you guys how to separate and distinguish principles of natural organization and or the sort of schema and frame of reality from social principles and or principles of corruption / parasitism. A lot of these things get interwoven oftentimes, and people, they think that, like, a lot of people, you for instance, you would look at something bouncing like a ball and you would see a computer program actually acting like a bouncing ball, and you'd be like, oh man, that moves exactly the way a ball would in nature, not realizing that a ball is an artifact and nothing in nature sort of works like that to begin with. It's weird, but this is the way it works. So the reason why I mentioned that again, we have a tendency to sort of conflate natural principles with sort of social rules and laws and things that we come up with. We can't tell the difference between how reality works as a system and what we interpret from reality and base our knowledge systems on. And that's essentially what I'm doing, is separating the two. And hey, these are the principles of the social realm and or the realm of parasitism and corruption. These are the rules of reality. That's what Avatar does. It's what all the predecessors did. It is what it is. Anyway, I shoot these podcasts on Mondays and Wednesdays on Facebook Live. Also, share content to my Instagram account, share videos and whatnot. I also fly all these videos over to YouTube, and I really have to get better about doing that. I just stay busy a lot of times, and during my downtime, even during my downtime, I'm always like sort of trying to tune to the species. So I spend time watching sort of videos and trying to, between running a baking company and being a dad and having a back and forth I have a busy life. So a lot of times I can't get to uploading videos, but it's something I can do better at. So I fly these over to my YouTube channel. You can check out my YouTube channel. Also post content to Medium. Yeah, man. Medium is where I post a lot of essays, stories, and parables to help people get a better grasp of concepts from different angles and principles from different angles. Guys, if you get any sort of appreciation out of what I do and you want to hit your boy off with a little bit of love, you can always hit me on, you can always sprinkle me with little, you can salt baby me some love over at Cash App. I'm at Donnie King. Donnie King. DonnieKang. And also, you can join the Patreon family. Proceeds go to, well, helping me get organized on this end and building this up to a larger platform. Again, I want to reach as many people as I can before I'm out of the shell, and I don't know how much time I got in this body, so I really do want to help as many people as I possibly can. And well, at this point, normally Avatar should, like, Species is way behind schedule, so at this point normally Species would be like cooperating with Avatar. Oh yeah, wow, we've vetted you, you're solid, okay, what do we do? But no, apparently those in power are going to fight tooth and nail to preserve their trauma. So it is what it is. Anywho, yeah, and Cash App, join Patreon, Avatar Cycle XIII, Avatar Cycle 13, which is the same as my Instagram. So there we have it, guys. I'm gonna go ahead and wrap this up here. I just want to say, for those of you who tuned in, I'm not sure that anyone did, but thank you kindly. For people who are working to break the spell of narcissism and doing their best to sort of recognize and sync up with reality, for people who are out here seeking truth and who aren't afraid of maybe losing meanings and symbolisms they've already internalized towards being more in theme and more in sync with reality, I appreciate you. If you out here being brave and honest and trying to know what truth is as opposed to trying to make everything become your version of truth, I fuck with you. You my people. I love brave people. I do. But it is what it is. Guys, I'm going to go ahead and get out of here, man. It's your man. I appreciate you. I thank you kindly. Yo, y'all have a good night. I'm out.